Now, 99% of the time, I try really hard in these recipes. I give it my all. I try to follow the recipe exactly and get the best results I possibly can. So you guys wouldn't mind if just this one time, out of the 150 recipes I've done, I might run to the store and buy something ahead of time, maybe run home and then super artificially color these things, just with whatever I could find around the house. It doesn't have to be anything specific, and as long as they look good, they're good enough to use, right? But what is going on, peeps? Welcome back to a brand new Buzzfeed test. Once again, I did an Instagram poll. I don't know why I keep doing these. And I thought that maybe the apple tots or even the bacon snacks might have a shot. But no, of course, the rainbow croissants won. Why would I expect anything different? These do look really dope though, and they look easier, dare I say, than the chocolate croissants that I've done. Should be interesting to see if I can pull off any type of croissant for a second time. So let's get right into it. If you are going to try to make these rainbow croissants at home, you're going to need to grab yourself some warm water and some gel food colors, kosher salt and active dry yeast, some sugar and a bunch of flour, a little bit of whole milk, some unsalted butter, and an egg. And first things first, we have to get that yeast to start to activate and develop. So I combined my milk and warm water along with a bunch of flour. I sifted all of these out. If you want the exact ingredients, go over to Tasty's video, as well as my sugar, salt, 1 packet of yeast, and some unsalted butter. Now, my biggest grievance with this is that in the video, these measurements are a lot different than the one that they wrote out in their main recipe page. I don't know which one to follow, so I'm just gonna take a guess. But my dough is looking pretty good, so I threw it out onto my floured surface, kneaded it a little bit, and then split off 1/4 of my dough mound. This little bit of dough is going to be the colored portion, whereas everything else is just going to be the main layers of the croissant. But regardless of if it's colored or uncolored, we're going to want to rest all of this dough for a minimum of 2 hours. So I first took the main one, covered it up, and set it aside. And with the colored ones, I rolled it out and then split it into even smaller equal segments. And I'm going to do 4 instead of Tasty's 5. Just because I have 4 different gel colors. I don't feel like trying to mix different colors and try to get a good 5th one. Croissants are already enough work, in my opinion. But I threw on some gloves, probably not food safe, but what are you gonna do? And one by one, I tried to massage in my gel food colors. You're gonna need a lot of this, as well as a lot of kneading. For a while it just stays as this weird marbled effect. You really have to press out this dough in order to get the color to equally distribute. It's a lot of work, I won't lie to you. But once I thought I got my 4 colors to a point where they'd be passable, I just rolled them up into dough balls, and just like the other dough, I let these rest in the fridge for 2 hours as well. Now a couple hours later I grabbed my main dough ball, and by the looks of it, it's risen about double of its size. Not nearly as much as Tasty's, but I think it'll do. I rolled this out onto my countertop once again. The rectangle that they had was just not happening. I had this oval, so I just transferred it over to a cookie sheet with some parchment paper. And apparently you're gonna wanna let this sit in the fridge overnight. I did the same thing with the chocolate croissant, so I was expecting this with this one as well. Not forgetting about our colors, I grabbed them out of the fridge. You basically just want to work these for a couple seconds and then form them into little rectangles. This will make it easier to roll out into strips when we're trying to cover the whole thing tomorrow. But once you got them in those shapes, you want to throw those in the fridge along with the main dough and let all that yeast and gluten develop together, I think. The next day I started to prepare my unsalted butter sticks. I'm using 2.5 sticks, or 1 1/4 cup of butter in total. I used the same amount for the chocolate croissants. I also just cut them in half and kind of laid them together, and it worked, so I'm gonna try the same thing for this one. I flipped the butter out onto my oval shaped dough, folded it up over the top, and from this point on I did the best I could trying to pinch the dough all around. roll it out equally every time, flip it up equally. It's very specific, it's a lot of work. In total you want like 27 different layers of dough and butter. You want to keep the butter ice cold by throwing it back in the freezer every time you roll it and flip it again. It's a lot. I want to say this whole folding and freezing process took me roughly 3 hours if I had to guess. But once I got to this point, I let it sit in the fridge while I worked on the colors. So like I said, we shaped these in some rectangles so we can cut them in half long ways and then roll out some equal strips. I used a little bit of warm water and just my finger in between each strip to try to glue them back together. And once I had them all done, I tried to thin them out a little bit without distorting any of the colors super unequally compared to the other ones. And you want this whole piece of colored dough to be slightly bigger than your main dough. That way you can wrap it around the sides and the top and the bottom and you'll get colors all the way around. So that's what I did. I flipped my colored piece out onto my main piece and tried to fold all of the colors underneath around the sides. And then just gave this one last rollout. And guys, just this point alone looks 100 million times better than I was envisioning originally. I would say it might even look a little bit better than Tasty's just based on the colors we both used. Shoutouts to everybody who watched and responded to my Instagram story who DM'd me and thought the same thing. I love you guys. But once I had this entire thing cut up into some equal triangles, I began to very carefully try to rip it up from the counter. It was a little bit stuck. And then gently roll each triangle into the shape of a croissant. I don't want to jinx it, but even still, they're looking really good here. I returned them back to the original cookie sheet with the parchment paper. I covered these and let them rest for one final time for 2 hours at room temperature. Afterwards, all you have to do is grab an egg and beat it up, and then just brush them with that egg wash. It'll allow it to get a nice golden sheen on the outside. And bake these off at 400 degrees for 22 minutes, and I do not know what happened in the oven, but these look a little ugly. A lot of them are deformed, they kinda like grew very strangely. This one looks decent, so I cut into it and you can see some of the colors on the inside. So I guess we can just give these a try. I don't know, I wanna say they look good, but I mean, I guess with this type of pastry, you have to brown it or else it'll be like doughy in the middle. So the color's gonna go away anyway. They do smell really good though. Like a cross between a bagel and a pretzel maybe. It's good. I would say it does remind me of a pretzel flavor a little bit, but I don't mind that. Peep those layers though. Every time I make croissants, I'm like blown away that I can even make it look half decent layers wise. I would definitely recommend the chocolate croissants over these. They taste better. They're more worth the effort, I think. But these are fine. I'll give these like a 8.2 out of 10. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave me a big like. Go follow me on Twitter, more importantly Instagram, so you don't miss the next poll to vote on these. Other than that, have an awesome weekend, and hopefully I'll see you right back here on Monday for another Buzzfeed test.
I just realized I don't think I peed once today.
That's concerning.
It is kind of concerning. That's why I just thought about it.
Drink some water, dude.
I've been drinking a lot of water. I just realized you're filming.
Mm-hmm.
You got that recorded.
Oh.
Everyone.
Should I put it in the outro?
Yes.
Drink some water, dude. Say hi to all the people who waited after my outro screen.
Hi.
Oh.
Something in you. Hey yo, I'ma explain why you probably never